Hi, this is Jeff with Northern Tail Sharpening. I'm going to talk about what to check on your Andis clippers whenever you get blades back from the sharpener and they don't cut. Most sharpeners test blades when they sharpen them, and they restore everything to the factory specs. They put a nice hollow grind on them, and they set the tension between 2.5 and 3 pounds around that area. But when you send blades off and they've been cutting on your clipper, and you get the same blades back and you haven't done anything to your clipper and they don't work, it's not necessarily the sharpener's fault. It's probably something wrong with your clipper, and I'm going to show you what to check on it right now. Because if you don't do the maintenance on your clipper, which you're responsible for, your blades aren't going to cut. The first thing I would check is blade drive. You can see, let's do the round Andis first. You can see by this blade drive here that, see that little metal part right there? It's bent. It's starting to bend around in a circle like that, and it's dark. What's happening here is when these things get old, they start to twist on the ends. When they take the blade when they take the cutter of the blade over, when it gets to the end, it twists a little bit. That's because it doesn't have any stiffness left to it. It's just wore out. And if you're using coolants, sometimes coolants contain acetone in there, and I believe acetone's eating some of these things up, especially when you're spraying the teeth while it's running. It says right in your clipper instructions not to do that, the Andis clipper instructions. One side says just to use coolant to cool your blades, and use blade oil before, during, and after the groom. And if you're going to use coolant, just use it to cool the blades. The best thing to do to use it would be to shut it off, spray the back of the blade, turn it over, and apply the blade oil. So that's the proper way to use it. But some are spraying the teeth, and it also gets inside your blade drive system here, and depends on what coolant you're using, it could be eating it up. So I would check the blade drive, and a good rule of thumb is whenever you get blades back, change blade drive first thing off. I would do that because you're starting out fresh. The next thing that can happen, let's say you put your blade drive in and something else is happening. They still don't cut. They cornrow. They flop off the clipper. Turn your clipper over. We're going to check the hinge now. A lot of people forget about the hinge. It's one of the main components of your cutting system because that's where you put your blade. And if there's any slop or anything loose in your cutting system, is going to cause problems. Either the blade's going to drag, or they're going to cornrow. Something's going to happen. It isn't always the sharpening. So the first thing I would do, if you change the blade drive and they still don't cut, they're still dragging, or they're cornrowing, turn the clipper over like this and see if you can pull back that hinge lip with your fingers. See how I'm moving that? That's bad. That hinge is broke. And it gets broke for a number of reasons. Inside the bottom of this hinge tongue here, this lip, there's a big wire that goes around. You can actually see pieces of the wire hanging out right there. That goes inside. They're supposed to go inside your latch, and it makes the latch go up and down in a spring motion. But if there's something broke, if that spring gets broke from condensation or the alcohol that you're spraying on this, that's what's in coolants, it gets in there, rusts it up, breaks it off. And so that thing there, you'll be able to pull back. And take a look at the bottom of that. See how that's moving back and forth? That's what happens. It's moving back and forth. So your blade's moving like a doorknob all the time. It's going to drag. So you change that, and probably your problems will go away. Here's a new hinge. Pretty easy to put it on. You can buy these whenever you order something from the big name Pet Edge, Rhines, or any of that. Get a couple of these. Get some blade drives. See, it's pretty hard to open that thing. In fact, I can't open it, and the only way to open it is with a screwdriver. And this is something that you should keep in your blade case or your toolbox as a screwdriver, so you can open that up. Don't use your hemostats, and God forbid, don't stick the end of your scissors in there. That's how it's supposed to sound. Next thing, if you change the hinge and the blades are popping off and they still don't cut, especially if you're going along in some halfway decent fur coat, you know, and all of a sudden you start hitting some thick stuff that's got some mats in it and your blade pops away, your latch might be broke. So let's get in here and see if you can see the latch. We're not going to be able to see it. Let me back up a little bit here. The latch has a little hook on it right there, and it looks like this. You can see that little hook on the end. What that does, that grabs your socket and holds the blade tight up against the clipper. If it's not on there, like this one here is broke, you can see it right there, it's broken off, that little hook. Every time you hit some tough coat, that blade's going to pop off of there, or it's going to pull away and it's going to drag because you're creating slack in your cutting system. So if you have to replace all three, replace the blade drive, replace the hinge, replace the latch. And I'm sure that after that, if they don't cut or something's wrong when you're oiling and cleaning the blades properly, it might be the sharpening. I don't know, but you've got to look at the clipper first, because that's 50% of your cutting system. It's right there. Okay, let's look at the square AG2 series. In order to get at the blade drive of this, you're going to have to take it apart. So what you do is you take off the 4 screws and you pull the top off. You should pull the top off of this every now and then anyway to clean the hair that's around it. Especially this little piece right here, because you'll think you have a bad switch, you'll set it down, all of a sudden it'll take off, or it won't. You stick it into the second gear, or the second speed, the high speed, and all of a sudden it'll pop back. What's happening is there's hair getting on both sides of this switch arm here. They call it a switch arm. And all you got to do is take a screwdriver and pop that hair out like that, and it almost looks like little pieces of felt, but it will shut you down, because what it does, when there's hair in there and you go to move the switch, it rides in a little slot on the side of the clipper right here in the clipper body. And when that felt's inside that switch arm, it won't let you go all the way forward, and it won't let you go all the way back. So sometimes when you set it down, the clipper will take off. It'll start up again. So you clean that out. That'll be great. Again, you can look at the blade drive. You need to. The AG2 is a funny clipper because it has an air hole in the front of it. You can see that air hole right there. And what will happen is it'll suck in, because it has an open commutator. Another good reason not to spray coolant on this, because its brush is sparking all the time. You could have a catastrophe. You never know. But it'll suck hair, and it'll get down inside the blade drive and can cause some problems in there. So you have to take it off and dig that out, or suck it out, or blow it out with your HV. Try to get the hair out of that, because there's nothing over the top of that blade drive like there is in your round Andis clippers, the AGCs, that keeps that. They put a little pad on that little hood on the AGCs to keep the hair from getting inside the blade drive. If hair gets in there, you're going to have some problems again too. So blade drive, that one there is almost done, but I would change it. I would change it as soon as I got stuff back from the sharpener. Let's look at the hinge on this. To test the hinge, all you got to do is try to pull it back with your fingers. There's no latch on this. It has its own latch. You put the blade on the lip, close it up. Here's a little latch part right here. It actually grabs a hold of the socket all by itself. So that way you don't have to push up a button. But grab a hold of this, and I see you can move it. See, I'm moving that like that. That hinge is broke. Here you can even hear that moving back and forth. That's going to cause your blade to do this, and it's going to drag. It's going to drag worse when you start hitting some heavy coat and cutting through mats and stuff with this. The bigger the blade, or the 7s and 10s, they'll cornrow. They'll look like a pair of corduroy pants. You change that, problems seem to go away. So anyway, that's the AG2. Some of the things you have to check. So that's it. That's what you look for in your Andis clippers. If your blades come back from the sharpener and they don't cut, this is Jeff from Northern Tail Sharpening.